Hello, everybody. I'm Alex, CEO and founder of MarsBased. Welcome to another episode of Life on Mars. And in this episode, we bring you the second panel of the Corporate Innovation Summit in continuation of the previous episode. In this case, we discuss quantum computing. And this is something that I had to prepare a lot for because I'm far from being an expert. But luckily, we compensated with having three real experts on quantum computing on the panel. So without further ado, let's jump right into this episode. Time to move to the next panel. As I mentioned, we are a little bit behind on time. I'd like to welcome the next set of speakers to the stage. So Sergio, Dorit, and Victor, please come to the stage. Big applause for them. We got too many chairs, but we can sit more spaced. We can leave some. Let's leave distance between you. Okay. Depends. Like you came last year, you decided to repeat this year. I'm not sure why.
I'm not sure too. Still questioning.
Yeah, let's start.
1, 2, 3. Yes, it works.
Thank you. Well, thank you for being here, Sergio. I wanted to start with you because I have the confidence, and actually you say in Spanish we say that confianza de asco. But so we've seen that quantum is something that people say every year. This is the year for quantum, right? Obviously, 2025 is the year for quantum, unless it was 10 years ago. But we have seen this demo by Concentroid. We're seeing other examples being shared at Mobile World Congress. And yet, we don't have the hardware required to run the real problems, and we're sending stuff to computers that are quantum computers, but like they don't solve real problems, or problems we could tackle with quantum computing. How far are we from that, especially taking into account the big news from last week? Is it on? No, this one. Then you use this one. Oh, yeah.
So this year, it is truly the year of quantum. The UN declared it last year.
Says the guy with the quantum newsletter. Yeah.
I do own a quantum newsletter. We call it the Quantum Pirates newsletter. If you're interested in that, I came to speak about my book, of course. So this is the year of quantum officially. The UN and several other organizations have declared that like that. And that's because the amount of development and milestones achieved in the last couple of years or so have been quintessential for what we are seeing today. Many of the challenges that we had in the past 5 years or decade have been already either solved or are in the way of being solved in terms of scalability of the devices or error correction of the devices. Moreover, we have a lot of tools, a lot of research, a lot of government investment, and we'll talk about cybersecurity as well and the importance of, again, governments and companies to tackle the challenge of cybersecurity and the risk that quantum computers put to that. Now, the quantum computers that we have today, we have them, they exist, and Carlos showed how you can send stuff to some of these quantum devices. They're still pretty small. So if you take a production workload with the sizes that it has, many of these devices will not be big enough or robust enough to run them. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to start today, because finding the use cases, encoding your data, finding how to use them, and learning, upskilling your team is quite of a challenge. So yes, this is the year of quantum, I would say.
In fact, we could be nerding out about like whether the changes from physical to logical qubits are going to affect the industry and whatnot. I don't think this is the right time, especially given that it's like beer o'clock. But I like to get your vision on why corporates have decided from going like super private and secretive about their strategy with new technologies, because back in the day, we don't want to share, we don't want to share, we don't want to share. And I was like, yeah, here we have got, everything is open source right now. So why did that change? And what are you doing in terms of quantum at Moody's and open source as well?
Let me put it this way. How many people do you guys think work in the private sector full-time in quantum computing? Would you say a number?
3 people.
That's me.
There are 100 companies.
You're part-time.
I'm part-time, but there are 100 companies at least that have quantum groups.
So the best guess, obviously this is a guess, but the survey that I've been making with a lot of people from different companies, big and small, is around 5,000 people. Mm-hmm. And there are a handful of companies with a few hundred people, such as you guys in Multiverse, IBM, AWS, Microsoft have robust quantum teams on different research, but that's still around 5,000 people. Maybe I fall short and it's 6,000. Maybe 7,000. That's still peanuts.
Unless you count quantum enthusiasts on LinkedIn, which is 5 million people.
Well, yeah, it's
Exactly.
almost as many as ChatGPT experts.
Exactly.
So with that amount of people and with something that is still getting into the maturation stage, sharing and building a community is fundamental. We all learn from each other, and it starts from academia, from research, goes into the implementations, and something that Greg mentioned before on AI that is absolutely true as well for quantum. Fine, you have that. What are you going to use it for? What are the use cases, and how these use cases actually touch on the quantum device? It's not just a high-level textbook problem, but my data, my way of solving it, and the specific use case that you're solving, especially in finance.
Dorit, welcome for the second year of...
Thank you. I have before that, the first rule is to spell right the name. Qubit is Q-B-E-A-T. But I'm in a superposition between cyber checkpoint and qubit and quantum. So.
My question is going to be, so there's one news from last year. Last year you were...
Only checkpoint.
Yeah, only checkpoint. I mean, besides all the other things you do, but no qubit ventures.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about what is that? What's your investment thesis? Because it's very difficult sometimes to understand the investment thesis of VCs, but now in quantum, wow, how do you build the thesis around that?
Excellent. So we start with the question, how many years to an advantage? So whether every year is the quantum year is because you have to prep for it, but I believe advantage is 2-3 years from now. 2-3 years is still good. Advantage means that you could not, this year you could still run it, but advantage means real advantage to some application. Second part is that not one winner takes it all. You have, if you want to invest in quantum, you have to have a portfolio. So we're gonna have a portfolio of multiple elements of this to kind of facilitate the industry to happen. We also believe that it's still a phase where early stage solution has space to impact. So we are going to invest in early stage, quantum focused only. And we think that quantum is going to change the world, and that's exciting.
How do you balance your investment thesis between universal versus specialized quantum computing?
What do you mean in that sense?
In the sense that, you know, one of the fields that we have seen in AI, for instance, is at the very beginning, everything was generalist, right? And so people were trying to tackle generic problems with generalist AI. Then down the road, we saw, or the sector saw that specialized LLMs, specialized models, specialized tools were much more performant, less error-prone, and all of that in an ever-changing landscape with quantum that it's so unstable. And then all of the sudden, Microsoft comes and shakes the entire industry. How do you balance your portfolio with that?
I think that at early stage, in quantum, there would be very few generalists. There is no way to be generalist in quantum in early stage. It's going to be crazy. Even picking 2 of the 10 modalities is not something that multiple people will understand. So every early stage is going to focus on something, either on a qubit modality or on a component or on software or on aspects. Very few would be attempting to be very generalist, and that's going to be a mistake. Now, the bigger guys may be trying to be generalist, but our thesis is that still there is room for early stage technologies to influence the space because it's very much evolving, and you could see technologies that are new that are jumping over kind of previous generation of technologies still.
In AI 2.5 years ago, more or less, we saw the breakthrough to the general audience with ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT kind of like accelerated things because it allowed it crossed the chasm, in a manner of speaking, right? How far are we from seeing something like this in quantum?
So I think this is really the question of what the advantage comes to be. I said I think there would be an advantage in 2-3 years. It's not going to be the application that my mother will use or everybody in the street, but they may use it because their application will use it. So this would be kind of a back-end problem solving for some bigger problem. But maybe if it would be optimization of portfolio of investment, maybe everybody would use it if they are an investor. So you may be using it at the back of the scene more than AI, which is kind of front-facing you. You talk to it, it becomes very personal. In quantum, the behavior would be different. And if the first thing would be to invent chemical material, I'm not sure how many people would be like directly using it. If the first would be finding a drug, it's different things. But even then, like approving a drug will take a long time. So it really depends on what is the first advantage that would start see solution. But what's true is that we all had technology for, I don't know if you saw the graph of ordering food from home in the US. There was a lot of technology to do this, but only when COVID came, all of a sudden everybody ordered food from home. So there are sometimes moments that are triggered not just by your technology readiness, but by the combination of your technology readiness with something that is really looking for this technology to happen.
And in fact, one of the differences between AI and quantum is like AI is kind of like fancy in the sense that anybody can use it, and it's more like B2C oriented because as you mentioned, like anybody can use ChatGPT to generate bedtime stories for their children. But I don't think I'm going to create proteins using quantum on my phone in the next 5 years. I don't know.
But maybe you'd use a drug that was invented this way. But then depends if you'd feel that quantum solved your problem really, or it's too far, like along the road.
Yeah, but it's kind of like we have to wait for a moment where an industry can invest something in a real use case that, because quantum is very back-end more than front-end, right? In this sense, maybe we don't, or I'm not in quantum field, but you are, you don't benefit from this hype that actually generates the flywheel of more users spending more money, then more investment being made, more virality through marketing.
There is more virality, but in business cases. If one financial company will start use quantum to do some optimizations of their portfolio, you would see all the banks and all the financial companies using it. So it won't be the effect of viral in the consumer sense, but it could be as important effect of viral in the business sense. If you'd see somebody optimizing material with quantum, you'll see many, many companies that are optimizing material with quantum. It won't be my mother, but it will be many companies.
It won't be me either yet.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Victor, let's move over to you. You got some big news this morning that were announced. Not you personally, but your company. So congratulations getting a lot of taxpayer money. So
you're welcome.
No, actually, you got like something like 65, something like that million investment from
67.
Okay, 67. You can break down. If you can explain a little bit what the company does, because a lot of people from the audience might not be familiar with that. Obviously, they're familiar with what Dorit does because she's been here last year. She's explained. Sergio is already very frequently at Startup Rhine, but how about you?
Okay, first of all, regarding this investment from the ministry, you raised the point, it's part of a Series B that we are raising 150 million, closing this quarter, so this month, basically. And it's part of the commitment from the government of Spain to deep technology companies like ours. So I think it's support that it's welcome to the startup world. In terms of MarsBased computing, we are a software company. We develop software for quantum computers and also quantum-inspired computing. I can mention a little bit what does it mean. We call them, basically to set the stage, we call them quantum computers because calling them science experiments don't raise valuations. Okay? So, because really they are science experiments right now. They are super noisy. They have a lot of errors. Of course, there is a path to solve all those problems. It's an engineering problem. The mathematicals and the physics behind that are well solid, but still an engineering problem that we are not capable to solve. I don't know the time frame. I'm in sales, and I want to do sales every 3 months. No, I don't want to wait 6 years, right? And there's this clear path to developing a quantum computer. There are many alternatives. And as a company that do software for these quantum computers, it's clear that we cannot make a sustainable business only based on quantum computers. So we had this idea a few years back that we could use some algorithms that are inspired on how quantum mechanics work, but they run on classical CPUs and GPUs, FPGAs. And using those techniques, for example, tensor networks or simulated annealing, we could have this transition from the quantum world, from the real quantum world, from the real quantum computer, into a problem that we can solve today, so into a problem that we can bring value to the customers today. So this is
I want to say something about
Go ahead.
value today. We met a few tens of companies that do things with quantum. One of them is a company in the US that is looking for small molecules for specific drugs. And the founders said that they are using today annealers, and they get to a result within 3 months that they would otherwise get to 3 years. So I think we should just put on the table that there are advantages. I don't hear it often. Most of the people that do use quantum today use it in order to experiment, prep, and kind of set the stage for when the quantum computer would be bigger. But there are some advantages already today. It's just not yet the wow advantage that we want to see, like exponential advantages.
No, but that's a good point, because usually some technologies have experienced a breakthrough moment when a certain industry that was not expected, like maybe medicine, for instance, right? Or in the case of cloud, so streaming, for instance, or online gaming, they created a new use case, and therefore more of this technology was consumed, therefore lowering the cost of it. Creating the Jeeves paradox and whatnot, right? So in the case of, I wanted to ask, maybe that's a question for the three of you. I usually don't do these kind of generic questions, but like, which field do you think, what sector do you think is going to win the race of quantum? Or which one is maybe not going to win, but is winning right now?
I only know one company that actually trying to use it in an advantageous way. The others are in experimental way and in proof of concept. I think that the chase is between material, drugs, financials. There is a couple of different types of subjects. There are simulations and there are optimizations, mainly, in terms of the algorithms being used.
Sergio? Obviously finance, right?
Obviously finance.
Or the next thing you create.
So I really believe that pharma is one of the key contenders, because quantum devices are extremely good at dealing with quantum data. And molecules, drug design, and all that is effectively quantum data. So anything that makes quantum information work better, whether it's simulating atoms, simulating particles, and so on, can be really good. However, obviously in finance, there could be a lot of haptic. So if you, there it was mentioned in portfolio optimization. If I tell you I have a thing that can give you 1% more returns on your portfolio, how much would you pay for that? 0.9% of your returns? And on top of that, if the availability of those devices is actually limited, or the ability to connect your data and your systems to those devices is limited, and there is a big competitive advantage for those companies that have started working on that already. Now the challenge is, and challenge you a little bit on the advantage thing. Advantage is completely dependent on the benchmark.
That's true.
And the benchmark comes not only with what can you do classically today, but also what your data is. So in finance, for example, we see many cases and many claims of there's quantum advantage on portfolio optimization, for example. But when it comes to using the real data that companies use in production today, everything falls through the cracks. At least now, right? It's not about optimizing with 10 assets from the S&P 500 on equities. It's about how financial institutions actually do these kind of processes and very complex ways of encoding the data. I am very optimistic, obviously, and that's why we work on this. But maybe back a little bit to your point. Comparing quantum with Gen AI is not the right comparison. Quantum devices are the equivalent to NVIDIA GPUs, if you will. And you can use those GPUs for playing video games, for mining Bitcoin, or for simulating things and training LLMs. Likewise, if your company has a a lot of data and knowledge on how to analyze risk of a given company defaulting, for example. And you run that classically, and you can encode that information in a quantum device that happens to run faster in the same way that GPUs run faster than CPUs for certain types of problems, then you get a competitive advantage. That's the whole flow.
Victor, how about you? Like, because you're seeing many more use cases, perhaps across industries.
I agree with material simulation. I really liked this idea of being able to simulate material properties of materials before even designing them. We have a specific case with the German Space Agency where we partnered with this Delft company that are developing superconductor nanowire single photon detectors. They develop these sensors that are 1 million times thinner than a hair, and they have this 99.5 detection rate, so they can detect single photons. It's amazing. It's an amazing sensor. You can detect single photons by using these properties of this type of materials. Now the bar is, can we beat the benchmark? So now what we're trying it with them is, can we develop an algorithm that can, before they build the product, the sensor, can we predict the optical properties of this sensor before we build it, and the benchmark is pretty high. It's 99.5 detection rate. Can we do something with a quantum computer in 3 years' time that can beat this benchmark? It's hard. So I mean, the problems that we have in front of us is not toy models. It has, Sergio explained, like optimizing 100 portfolio, 100 companies in a portfolio. It's about developing something that brings value, and 99.5 is damn difficult.
Victor, you wanted to?
There is a difference, by the way, between sensors and quantum computing. Sensors have the advantage today. So if you talk quantum technologies and not quantum computing, then there are advantages today, and there are sensors today that would be much better than normal sensors. So if you take quantum as quantum technologies and not just as quantum computing, there is plenty that is already being done.
Victor, the reason I brought up the investment news is it's twofold. One is obviously to congratulate you on that. The second is I take it as a gesture from the Spanish government towards innovation. The EU has been, dismissed and kind of like, basically America has been saying a lot, the EU is slow, innovation doesn't happen in Europe, at the plastic caps of the bottles and all of that, whereas we send rockets to Mars and stuff like that. But in the last few weeks, there's been a change of narrative of like, hey, Europe, that was a wake-up call with France leading. At least France is leading the European innovation, at least in AI, some might say. What do you see the regulation like in Spain and in Europe in general, in your case?
You promised in the preparation meeting not to ask nasty questions.
It's never a nasty question. There's only nasty answers.
Okay. So regulations, I think there's my feeling. There are many people talking bad about regulations, but I think it's a way to know in which game are you playing. I mean, it's like a soccer match. Imagine a soccer match without regulations, without norms. I think it makes a common playing field for everyone, and you know how to play in this game. And you decide whether do you want to play in this game or you want to go somewhere else to play, right? I think from a user's point of view, having some clarity on how my data is used, if I have some saying about how this company is going to build a specific model with this data, how this company is going to use it, it's really good for the users. I mean, and as a citizen, I appreciate that. As a company, of course, sometimes when the rules are too tough, I prefer maybe to go somewhere else. But this is what are the balance between too much or too few regulation, right? I think in general it's positive. I think it should be better in Europe to have a common regulation, so something more simple that applies on all the countries instead of dealing with 27 different regulations. So some common sense there, it would be appreciated from a company point of view. But in general, I would say that regulation is right, and we are in the right direction also. That's my feeling.
Thank you. Financial services or financial companies have been early adopters of quantum, right? Because there's a use case there that's pretty clear. Yet, what do you think of the friction that you're encountering when you're trying to sell internally these kind of projects and investments? Because I don't think it will be easy to go to your CEO and say, like, look, you have to invest 1 billion in producing these because maybe in a few years we'll have something. How do you present this internally? How do you sell it internally?
Well, that's kind of what I did. I didn't ask
And
for
it
a billion, but
Yeah.
no. I think it is really important. There has been two challenges in quantum. One is obviously that it's really difficult to explain what the value is, and two, for those who may manage to do that, that they created or generated the wrong expectations. As in, we're going to get ROI from this very soon. And in fact, in the financial industry, we have seen how some companies created quantum teams and disbanded them right after 2 or 3 years of these teams producing nothing but a few white papers, for example. And that is a big challenge because it's indeed a long-term thing. So the first point is how long-term innovation, what is the long-term innovation strategy of your company, and making sure that there is an overarching theme around that. And then specifically on quantum, a lot of what we've been talking about here is the offensive. How can I create better portfolios with better returns or discover drugs faster and so on? But there is a defensive mechanism as well, which is what I guess many people in the room know, that quantum computers create a big disruption in the cybersecurity world because they will, one of those niche mathematical problems happens to be breaking the cryptography system that we know today. So the argument is twofold. One is, what if in a few years we can manage to get this type of ROI by meeting market expectations, by getting new customers, by being competitive, but also imagine all our data goes out in the wild and everyone can use it. You probably wouldn't want that, right? What are the chances of that happening in 10 years? Is that 50% chances? No. Is that 10? No. Is that 1%?
What do you think?
So now there's a really big survey that runs every year by a company called Evolution Q. And in the last edition, they are saying that 10% of the quantum experts think that there's going to be a cryptographically relevant quantum device, meaning a quantum computer that can break RSA cryptography by 2030. 10%. Before it used to be 3% and then 1%, but it doesn't matter. If you go to a CEO and you tell that person, look, a quantum team is going to cost you a few million, tops. It's not going to be a multi-million dollar initiative unless you want to build your own quantum device. Would you be the CEO that risks your company's data for 1% chances? That argument takes the win.
Dorit, what's your view on this? Because it seems like every year we're pushing back that date. It feels like we're building the Sagrada Familia, which, every year is like, no, it's going to be complete by 1992. Should have been completed by the Olympics, then year 2000, then shit happens. And
it's going to be before fusion, nuclear fusion.
So I have a few things. First, just to set the ground, it's my 30th year at Checkpoint, and I'm doing cyber like 37 years. So, and I'm only doing quantum very few years. So for me, Sagrada Familia is like still. I'm new to quantum, but in 2020. I was in Davos and I heard a lecture about quantum supremacy, and I thought, wow, this is very long from now. This is very, very far. The presentation was kind of very theoretical and outreach, and I think why I got to quantum in the last year is because I really got excited that by many indication it's becoming sooner. But the cryptography part is actually the hardest part because you have to be fault tolerant and with many qubits. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited about advantage that is coming soon. That doesn't mean that cryptography problems are coming soon. Nevertheless, even if cryptography is broken in 10 years, there are a few reasons why companies should be worried about them now. One is that if you have data at rest that maybe somebody copied today and would be still valuable, you need to handle it today because if they break it in 10 years, it's still valuable. The second reason is that in some areas, replacing the whole cryptography after building on this industry as a basic assumption that it will always work is going to take very long time. Just mapping it, replacing it, changing the protocols, etc. In some places, it should be easy, like a VPN. Buy a VPN from a vendor that is doing it, the VPN in an agile way, and will just give you a PQC next month, and that's it.
But it must be hard first to fight off technical debt in a way. The second is like people working in these long-time solutions, they usually don't work in the company to see the effect of the decisions they've made, right? Not you, you've been 30 years the same company. In technology, that really doesn't happen. So if I'm working on a quantum company and given the volatility of the market, chances are the developers working on that or technical people working on that, they will move to another company. So therefore, I don't know how skewed or how sound their architectural decisions are if they know they're not going to be in the company.
So I actually think these are two things. One is for companies to build quantum teams for the advantage that they could use. If the issue is quantum cryptography, this is not the same set of people and not the same set of problems, in my opinion. Actually, most of the solutions are pure software solutions that have nothing to do with quantum, except that the algorithm should be quantum safe. And there is the fine line of using QKD, which is quantum technology to exchange key exchanges. This is very expensive technologies that is created by few. It doesn't solve like a browser to a company issue. It solves site to site or company to company. So most of the solutions for the cryptography side is post-quantum cryptography that has somewhat little relation to being a quantum expert, in the sense that you assume NIST or some other organization would set the standard on cryptography. You are not going to invent your own standard. So it's a software issue.
For Victor, last question before we can wrap up the panel. If I'm not mistaken, you're a technical background. You've got a technical background doing sales. Must be really hard selling a technology corporates don't understand. Like you're selling quantum to corporates. I'm selling JavaScript to corporates, which is also they don't understand. But how important do you think is like having this ability to speak the language of the technology you're selling, understanding what the corporations need and or your other, the other person you're talking to, and being able to sell it, right? I think you did it in person, right?
That's a good question. At the end of the day, it's similar to selling any type of software project. You need to build trust. You need to build trust that you can deliver. And to build trust inside an organization, you need to convince several stakeholders. If you can, in those first initial meetings with the different stakeholders, manage the language and make it in a way that they understand the message, I think that's the way to go. If you can speak the sales language, like what is the value for this company of applying this solution, maybe not now, maybe in 5 years' time, whatever, you need to transmit it to that particular person. But then you have technical people that maybe have different interests. You need to understand what are their interests and try to transmit that in the language that they understand. So I think right now, since we cannot have a product that it's perfectly defined, and we can package it and sell it as a product that it's more oriented towards services, you still need this type of people that has mixed backgrounds, that they can talk a little bit the business language and also the technical language. So.
And how can you qualify whether a lead is, because I assume like you're not doing sales outreach, it's mostly inbound companies reaching out and saying, hey, we want to explore something with you. However, you know that a high percentage of that, they just want to entertain the idea just to learn the basics, the cost implications, whatnot, but they will never get to sign the project, right? How do you qualify that?
I mean, for quantum computing, so if you talk only pure quantum algorithms on quantum computers, there is only, in sales we call it ideal customer profile, and there are really a few people inside organizations and really few organizations that are willing to invest in the mid-long term. Okay? So identifying what is the account in the mid-long term is pretty easy. Just look for the ones with deepest pockets, okay? And these are the ones typically...
Like Sergio.
I mean, these are the guys that want to invest in the mid-long term, like 5-10 years time, and again, to understand the technology. And inside those organizations, they are the more technically versed, like innovation departments, research departments. These are typically the areas where you scout for quantum computing projects. And then you have mechanisms like public funding, for example, RFPs and grants to try to support the business case with those organizations on how to build a project with them, right? And that's it.
How can people reach out to you, and why should they?
I have a guy that's called Victor Gaspar. He's a Brazilian top model. It's not me, okay? Because if you Google Victor Gaspar, this guy, I mean, my God, he's good.
Everybody has got a doppelganger.
Yeah.
What is going on? Okay.
Too many people. So LinkedIn, my email is victor.gaspar@multiversecomputing.com. Pretty easy. And I mean, reach out if you want to talk about quantum computing, quantum inspired, how to use quantum inspired computing for AI. I don't know, let's have a conversation.
Sergio, how about you?
I'm pretty easy to find. You can subscribe to my newsletter, The Quantum Pirates, on Substack. You can buy my book, The CTO Toolbox. All the proceeds go to a couple of fantastic NGOs in Barcelona. And you can ping me on LinkedIn, on anywhere.
Why should they? Like,
Why? Why? Because I'm awesome.
It's fantastic. Dorit, how could they
I'm
reach you?
Dorit Dor at the LinkedIn. I think there is not much competition to my name.
There's a Ukrainian developer
Maybe.
that got your profile or your GitHub handle or something like that.
I'm also Dorit at checkpoint.com. I'm also Dorit at qubit.vc. And you could reach out to me for cyber stuff. That's on my side of one side of the head. On quantum, we are looking for pipeline, investors, and strategic relationships. So happy to talk to you on any of them. I'm also enthusiastic on technologies more generally, so AI and other stuff. The world is just very exciting. That's it.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Big thank you to the panelists, all of them. Big thank you to the crew and the organization and our sponsors again, CMS and Moody's. Thank you very much for putting up with me and my fuck-ups for 7+ years. And I'll see you all in the next room. There's a catering and the beers. We're going to have 1 hour for that.
Thanks for the mics.
And for the mics, yeah. Next year with the NVIDIA mics.